So hello, everyone. Good evening. Very nice to see you all here in this episode, new episode of the Planet Tech Talk, which would be a bit different. How different, you may ask? May I suggest slightly? It's still a talk, no changes here, but we still have presenters, but instead of a queue, we'll have a heap. And this time we're gonna have a few questions for you in the form of polls, so keep an eye on them. The topic of today's talk is triple diamond. What's that? I'm sure you're all familiar with the double diamond method made popular by the British Design Council. And what's better than a double diamond? Exactly, a triple diamond. So by the end of this meetup, by the end of this hour and a half, you'd know more about it, how to apply it, its common pitfalls, and how can it be helpful in your day-to-day work. Sounds great, right? Okay, but first, since we're talking about gemstones, allow me to introduce the crown jewels of this event, our wonderful speakers / panelists. From beyond the Atlantic, from the Southern Hemisphere and from the Western Hemisphere, from the densest hemisphere, we've got Natasha. Natasha is a product and user researcher who used her passion for math to excel in political philosophy, spotting patterns, painful points, and needs of the people. Natasha, one question: is the movie Wag the Dog look like a documentary to you? Just kidding. Joining Natasha are Matt and Volatile, the authors of the podcast you all know and like, The Two Facets. The Two Facets podcast, besides being a great Two Facets podcast, is a podcast that dives deep into the product development topics. That's Two Facets podcast. Remember the name. Is this enough? Keyword density? Oh, good.
Yeah,
okay.
More keywords coming. So yeah.
Okay. So back to the people behind the Two Facets podcast. Hunkal is a product designer in Doc Planner, an active promoter of design sprints, and a person who brings you the inner designer in you in those workshops, whether you like it or not. Just kidding. Everybody likes that so far. And Matt here is a product manager and a common sense enthusiast in Doc Planner with a decade worth of experience working in different topics, from the EHR to the doctor's app to the video consultations and so much more. One of the few people I know personally who can talk for 10 hours on the topic and still make sense. Hi, Matt. Well, at this point, I think I should stop yammering. It's been long enough. And what do you say? Should we start?
Yes, we shall. Thank you so much for the introductions. So we will begin today our talk on obviously the triple diamond, but also how we collaborate, in a product team, what are tweaks and, new methods and maybe tools here that we use in our day-to-day basis. But to begin with, let's start with a rhetorical question. How do we see the world? I mean, this question seems fairly odd. Like, why are you asking me this question, Natasha? But to be honest, this question is very important. And the way that we see our world, the characteristics of our world, if we see our world in a linear way, or if we see our world in less of a linear way, in a more unordered, unpredictable way, that will influence from the moment you wake up and you make your decisions to pick your clothing in the morning, to the moment you go to work and, work in a product team or in a project or vis-a-vis a business strategy. And what exactly are we talking about, Natasha, right? So what type of characteristics are you referring to? So we brought here two ways that you can see, the world, and these have been brought by the literature. So our beautiful philosopher, Karl Popper from the 1990s, he actually brought up two metaphors that even describe these worlds better. You can call them Lamo, you can call them VUCA, but you can also call them clock and cloud. So what do we mean by Lamo? Yes, the acronym means linear, anthropocentric, mechanistic, and ordered. So just like a clock, things are predictable. Human beings are rational. The decision-making process is linear. So I have a preference for a specific type of clothing, for example, and thus this preference will be followed every day. It is predictable, thus, and the various of our, I would even say, like economic understandings and principles of things take away a lot, these principles into account. And here we have the VUCA world. The VUCA world stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Here the metaphor that Karl Popper uses, which is just brilliant, this world is like clouds. Things are unpredictable, things shift from left to right. I mean, it is chaotic, but at the same time, if we don't take the very extreme version, it's still somewhat systematic. So we can still see it's complex, yes. And then how do we deal with this world if this is how we see it? This is another question that we're going to address in a second. But the whole point here is that how you see these two worlds, or how you see our world today, if it's in a LAMO lens or in a VUCA lens, that will influence the activities and the way that you just go about on your day-to-day basis. So I'm going to give you an example to be more practical here. So I started out by talking about the clothing example. I like the clothing example. Let's say let's say we live in a LAMO world. We live in a linear, very centered on rationality world. In that world, when I would wake up in the morning, I would have to think of, all of the clothing that I have in my closet, what the most appropriate clothing in my closet is based on the weather today. I would make that calculus and I would pick the clothing that I wear today. I'm not so sure I followed those steps today, honestly. If you lived in a VUCA world, right, you actually ordered your closet in a way so that you can pick things as fast as you can. I mean, I don't want to waste my energy picking my clothing, right? So we're talking about a decision-making process here that is not linear. And these two understandings also influence how you see, let's move to the product world right now, how our users interact with us, what our user decision-making process is, what our stakeholders actually as a whole, how they decide. So let me ask you first, which model do you currently use today? There is no right or wrong answer here. We want to encourage
folks, if you see the polls button in your Zoom interface, you could click it and the poll would show, and it's the first question. So choose one of the four. And if anyone has problems seeing the poll, please write in the chat. We will see what we can do about this, okay?
Randomly. I like that answer. A mixture.
It's an interesting mind exercise, no? To think about it.
Right. Especially when we know that our tendency as human beings is to simplify things and to make things like linear.
Yep.
But that's our intention. We achieve it in the end.
Both VUCA, okay. Both.
For the second survey, let's wait for the second one. We'll relaunch it at the time. So right now, please do not.
Please ignore question 2 for now.
VUCA, so we have no LAMO worlds here.
Mainly LAMO, yeah. One.
Just for today.
Just for day. I like this, depending on the day.
Right. Perfect. So I think we got to like a stable point. I think this exercise is good, and we can talk about this, Matt and Hunkal. But the point being, there is no right or wrong answer, but we do have evidences today that people are shifting, right, in terms of the literature and which model they take. And there has been a shift from the LAMO world, the linear model of looking at things, into the more VUCA world, But of course, there are pitfalls also of the VUCA world, right? Because I mean, if things are very chaotic, not predictable, and unordered, how do we deal with this world, right? How do we, can we find any patterns here that can help us? Like, can we look at it in a more systemic way, or is it complete chaos? I don't know what you, Honkal and Nat.
Yeah, so I really like the answer with sometimes cloud, sometimes clock. This is a lot of my thinking here too. Because like if you think about them, you should treat them as models, no? So similar to physics or mathematics, we need some models, some proxies for ourselves to be able to describe the world. And then, you know, for some occasions, it's just gonna be more appropriate or more productive for you to try to lie a bit and make some not linear processes linear at looking at first. Even our process that we're going to be talking today is not that linear as it may look like. So for me, it is a mix of both. So in some cases, like I love VUCA being as a, you know, the main navigator, but then switching between the models can be nice tooling, I would say. But tell me, Hunka, what's your view there?
No, I agree totally. So I see the world more like the VUCA with the clouds, but for sure you need sometimes to have these linear moments, right? Otherwise, how would you even run life in general on a daily basis? So yes, I see that you can have small linear things inside your complex world. Yeah.
Right, and I think that point, Honkal, is very important. That in the linear world, because things are more predictable and rational, it doesn't take into account that human beings are emotional, and that there are other variables there that we also need to take into account. So how I would phrase it is like, maybe we should take other variables into account, emotion, the context, how things are framed, that your own internal biases, those things will influence, right, our decision-making process. So in agreement, but perfect. I love this exercise. So now let's move on to how exactly do we deal with this world that we have today, and what is our perception and understanding of the world?
Yeah, so as you may see from the discussion we quickly had here, we lean more towards the VUCA understanding with some bits and pieces of the Llama model too. But then we have some principles. So first of all, people are neither rational or irrational. So we should not assume one on another is true. You should know your reality and its context. So just to give you an example, in Doc Planner, we do work with secretaries. So in like super linear process, you may assume like person clicks a button and then fills some information is saved and everything's fine. But then if you add context mix to it, you will see that this person has like, you know, 3 phone calls ongoing. 1 person is walking in, 3 people wants to get a shot for COVID, and she's alone there, needing to do actions in your system right now. So this changes dramatically how you're going to approach the design and then the feature that's going to be developed and the value you can deliver. The other thing is adapting to chaos and ambiguity. So we all know we are working with high-risk projects. So in majority of the cases with startups or software in general, you work with not defined stuff. So there is a lot of risk assigned to it. So we should be aware of it and embrace it. We should collaborate to see other points of view. So if we assume all of those contexts, emotions, and everything else can make an important impact of whatever we're doing and producing at the end, more different views we can have, more complete gonna be our view, and then we can build more complete solutions. We should work on the right things to reduce the waste. So this can be controversial, but let's say we can build anything on the planet, like any software team can build whatever is tasked with if the skill is there, but it's not, you know, smart to just produce. It's much more important to focus on outputs, so focusing on the right things to build. We should be human-centered, but not contextless. So we should be thinking about our users as humans, but keep in mind that all of them are a bit different and they're having different contexts. We should be finding tools to reduce the risk and uncertainty. So during the process, we should be working with this risk. And then, as I mentioned already, working on outcomes, not the output. So focusing all of our activities on putting as much output as possible to the world, not really focusing on the number of stuff that we will ship. So in more practical terms, this means we work with triple diamond. You may be familiar with some of the parts of the methodology from Zendesk and British Council. So British Council was the first one. Then Zendesk invented the triple diamond, and then we customized it a bit in Doc Planner to use for our needs today. And yeah, during our talk, we're gonna go and deconstruct it a bit. So we'll start from the first diamond, so the double diamond that is focused more on doing the right thing. You will see what does it mean, but here we want to focus on the fact that a lot of problems we're gonna be working on are wicked problems. So those are not easy problems or problems with the right solution or one right solution. There is multiple of solutions possible for those problems. And it's more in the first diamond, we've tried to find problems that we can define and find some solutions that are worth pursuing later on. And then in the third diamond, we focus on doing things right. So this is where the product and development and everything joins everything. But I will not go into too much detail. Let's focus on the first double diamond and let's go through it.
Yes. So let's start with the first section of the diamond. And even before we get there, you're like, okay, problem, why problem? One, right? We're trying to build solutions here, new solutions or optimizing solutions. And it's like, yes, we know. We also want to build great solutions. But of course, the whole point here is that users are going to use your solution if that solution solves and alleviates a need. And when we're talking about problem, we're talking about needs, desires, pain points, touch points, jobs. So yes, love your solution, but I would say love your problem more. And in this phase, what we do is we open up, right? We open up the first diamond, we explore, we look into understanding what the needs are, desires, and of course, like there are differences here. And I think this is where the fun starts, right? Like we're exploring, let's say, a specific topic at hand, how patients interact and manage their health. I mean, of course, we can explore so many things, right? And where can we start? And it really depends on where, of course, the type of product, let's say, you're looking to build. If you're starting something new from scratch, if you're optimizing, this will make a difference. And I think Matt will later even touch upon it on the third diamond. But the bulk here is that we should be exploring. It can come from a business objective, yes. And I think the very big difficulty is trying to transform something like, let us know, Natasha, as a researcher, how we can retain our patients via the chat. I mean, yes, we already have something very solution focused. We have to deconstruct that, rebuild what our questions and our scope would be so that we can understand like what are potential scenarios and needs of, in this case, communication with the specialist, right? And of course, these differences here in terms of needs, desires, these are very important because needs, I would say, are more stable. These are things that don't really change. So if we get even Maslow's hierarchy, we have at the very bottom, like physiological needs. These are things, and safety needs, which are related to health. These are things at the base and the core of our day-to-day activity for us to, live and live well. And so these are things that are stable, they are there. So if we have, let's say, a solution that works to alleviate or solve a specific basic need, I would say you are on the target, you got it. But Natasha, what about motivations? What about desires? I mean, these are obviously great points and we need to explore them fully. We need to really understand the market, the user in its context. But I would say, and this is where it gets fun, we can play around with things, right? Desires are more of a, it's like a later phase, right? You have a need, and then maybe you might have new desires that can arise from other solutions, past solutions that you use. So we're talking about different levels here of engagement and different levels here of like how much effort you're really going to put. Yes, Matt.
I just wanted to add here that what we do here and what's the, showing our principles is also in this point, we do heavily collaborate inside the product team. So it's not that Natasha is alone there. We try to work with those desires, and if we see them, we can always, jump and try to bounce them out of any business goals or product goals that we may have. And then some of those can be just, some of those tough decisions we can make thanks to educating, collaborating with the rest of the product team also.
Perfect. Yes. So the demand can come from a business strategy, let's say, but we're going to reconstruct it, right? And we're going to make sure that we have the right scope here at hand, but it can also be the opposite, right? We can have knowledge on these problems, and that could also help work to find new business strategies, right? So, and great, actually, this goes into the second point, which is, okay, when do we then move, right? To say, I've explored all of these problems, and I trust the data that I have today, and I can move on to the next section, which is the validation. Of course, it's not as linear, but this is something that we in the research team here at Doc Planner, we have been debating a lot. Like, when can we say we trust our data and our insights? Like, what is enough? And a couple of elements that we use here is like triangulation, which has a lot to do with what you said, Matt. Like, we're talking about different types of data. Like, one thing is the user telling me that, or like you telling me that you're going to the gym tomorrow. Another thing is you behaving and actually going to the gym tomorrow. So we have triangulation of different types of data, but we also have triangulation of different stakeholders, right? So we can have internal hypotheses, right? And at the same time, we can look and see if there are patterns found also in this exploratory phase. So I think this is a very important point for us to really say, like, I trust the insights that I'm gathering. And it's hard because exploring can involve qualitative data and analysis. And when can we say like 6 interviews is enough? And we can talk about this, but like sample saturation is a whole nother topic, but which is great because then we move, let's say we do trust our data. What we would do then, or our insights, what we would do then next is work to define a problem statement, one or more, right? Of course, it really depends on how wide you're opening this diamond and how many closing points you want to have. But the whole point is, okay, you have initially triangulated your results, found a couple of patterns, but how can we know this is truly an opportunity? How big is this need? This is what we're asking. And this is where we try to really validate, right, in terms of impact. And this can be so many things, right? Impact can be in terms of frequency. It can be the size of the pain point. It can be the importance and the valence that is given to that job, that need. So it is all a question of defining what for you would be an impactful need, right, based on the topic at hand. And once we have that, it's like we're niching down, like we selected promising problems that will be transformed into a problem statement. Now, this problem statement section is really important, right? It has to be very clear. We have to have like an understanding of what market or niche are we talking about, what user we're talking about, what need or desire or pain point we're talking about. Usually we have this format that we use, which is like, I user have a need, but I have this pain point because of a job, which leads to other emotional consequences. So this section is also very important. And I think this is where we collaborate a lot with designers, right, Hunkal? So
Yes.
Moving to our next phase.
Exactly. So right after exploring the problem space, we will start exploring the solution space, which is the second diamond. And here we're still, as Matt explained at the beginning, trying to solve the right thing. But we should not be obsessed here on finding the one solution, like the right solution. Because as we mentioned already, we're facing wicked problems that can have multiple solutions, and also they don't have like a right or wrong solution, right? There's only solutions that work or don't work. So we should have this kind of mindset of we are going to try to find the solution that will solve the problem and that work for the user and that we can build. Then, so we start in the problem statement, as Natasha said, that's the connecting point. And this is very important because it will set up the base for us to start ideating. It will serve as a compass to set up the direction of the solution when we start thinking about where the solution will go. It will set up the boundaries as well of the solutions, up to where do we want to take the solution. And also it will serve as an inspiration for our creativity to start thinking about ideas. And for this, the problem statement should not be too broad, because if it's too broad, it's going to be very difficult to solve. It's like trying to find, trying to have an idea with a blank page or a blank space. And on the other hand, if it's too narrow, it might even include the solution in it. So we need to be careful that it's not like too broad or too narrow to then start ideating. And then what happens next is that, so when our brains listens to a problem, Natasha, if you can come to the first one, sorry. Yeah. So when our brains listens to a problem, we quickly want to jump into a solution, but we want to avoid that, because as we said, there might be multiple solutions. So what do we do? How do we do that? So we want to try to find tools that helps our brain to connect the ideas on a different way that we would normally do. So then we can come up with solutions we wouldn't have come at the beginning. And tools like this can be, for instance, getting inspiration from other industries or other products that are solving a similar problem. It can be co-creating with peers or with stakeholders, even with final users. So then we can see other perspectives and build on top of each other's ideas. And the most difficult part here is to try to not judge the ideas yet. So as you can see, we are opening in the diamond. So we want to be broad, and we want to allow ourselves to be a little bit wild, because as I said, you want to have your mind taking a different path that it will normally take. And it's been said that for having one good idea, you need to have like around 60 bad ideas. So imagine if you want to have 2-3 good ideas, you might, I don't know, like a 200, 300 bad ideas. So it is more going for quantity here than quality. And yeah, then now we can go to the next one. Thank you, Natasha. So when we arrive to the top of the diamond, we have this super big pool of ideas. And what do we do next? We want to start thinking, okay, from all of these solutions, what are the next steps? What direction do we take? What do we do next? So first of all, we need to start placing bets on which ideas or which solutions we think that might work better, right? Or might have a better impact. And we will do first just based on our current knowledge and based on assumptions, on things that we believe to be true. But at least we need to have a first guidance to reduce the number of ideas to start drawing the path. We can do this just by conversations with the team, with stakeholders, or we can use more like a visual map to evaluate the ideas based on some criteria. But the most important thing here is to understand that we are basing our selection on assumptions, things that we don't believe to be true. So to actually move forward, we need to make some validation, right, Natasha? And you're super experienced on that. So tell us a bit more, how do we validate?
Right, so this is when we collaborate again. I mean, we're collaborating like iteratively. So this is a cycle. Sometimes we think we have our problem defined. We go to validate it and it's like, it's not as impactful. There's stuff missing. We go back and we explore again, right? And the same with the solution validation. So here it's again another touch point. And as Juncal mentioned, we have a series of hypotheses in mind. And okay, like what are these hypotheses? They are based on how much this solution is the best, let's say, solution in what we can do in terms of what? Alleviating or solving the need, right? It's also related to assumptions about feasibility, desirability, interest, right, in using this solution, feasibility. These are all hypotheses or assumptions that will come, as Hunkal mentioned, from internal knowledge, from past research, benchmark, competition analysis, etc. But here, when we validate, we're talking about an experiment, because the whole point, it's really validating the causality, right? The relationship in between the solution that we're developing and the problem in a very umbrella term, right? Let's say need that we're looking to solve or alleviate. We're not really getting into the deeds of the experiment. We can also, if you have questions about that, place them in the Q&A. Later, we can address them.
And now it's question time for us. So I'm going to relaunch the poll. Should be available again. Okay. Now I would ask everyone to check the poll and answer the second question. Where does design fit in the structure, in your opinion, again? Do you see the results? Natasha, Matt, Hunkal?
I don't see it.
I don't see it.
No.
If you
Still see the Llama VUCA one? No, it's the okay.
You need to
Below.
scroll
Okay.
to the second
you need to
page.
Oh.
scroll.
Okay. Cool. So most of the people, yeah. Full
Second
diamonds.
diamond only, third diamond only, Hunkal.
It does not fit as well.
It does not fit.
people.
Ooh, I'm curious.
Yes, so probably it's worth explaining what are the artifacts we actually generate in those two diamonds, no? So we could.
So yeah, I mean, shall we wait for a bit more for the poll, or what do you mean, Matt?
Yeah, I would move, I guess, because we have
Okay.
answers. So
Yeah,
I
we
would-
have the answer. Yeah.
and
So
results.
exactly as Matt says, it depends on what artifacts you want to use, or more, I would say, how do you define design, right? What's for you the definition of design? So depending on that, any answer can be correct. It just depends on what you consider. So
Just
for
to
me,
just to add, the result is all diamonds is the most popular, and
Mhm.
then that second diamond and the third diamond. So interesting.
It is good.
Yeah. So please,
Yeah.
sorry. Continue.
No, thank you. Yeah. So for me, to design, I would define design as to find a solution to a problem that it's not well defined. So if we are trying to find a solution to a problem that it's not well defined, first we need to define the problem, right? And to define the problem, we need to understand the problem space. So based on this definition, for me, the design will start at the very beginning, together with the very first diamond. And you can also see this if you take the design thinking model. So the design thinking, it's a process that represents the stages of the design process. And it has 5 stages. So empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And as you can see, the first 2, empathize, so understand your users and their problems. It's basically the first part of the first diamond. Then we have define, which is defining the problem. So it's the second part of the first diamond. And then ideate, prototype, and test, they are reflected on the second diamond. So as you can see, both the double diamond and the design thinking, they are both representing the design process. And for me, yeah, go.
There's something I think that also might be interesting for us to define what the solution is, because maybe there's also misunderstandings here and
Yes.
people have different definitions.
I guess we have
Exactly.
one slide that can spoil a bit, no? With how we show the
Yes, let's move to the next slide. Yes. Ta-da.
This
These
is the
are, yeah,
design
this
we're
is
speaking about so
exactly.
far.
So as a highly experienced senior designer, this is the work I do on a daily basis, you can see. So yeah, so this can be considered a solution. So in this sense, the design process will extend as well towards the third diamond until the end. So at the end of the second diamond, Okay, so before in the past, or maybe if you are building a product that it's expensive to produce, you need a moment in time where you have a very detailed and finalized and validated design so that you can move this to production, because any error or any change will be very expensive. But in digital products, this is not true anymore. So what you would do, or at least what we do, and what I like to do, is at the end of the second diamond, let's say, you have a solution defined in the sense of a direction of a solution, a concept of a solution, right? So a very broad solution, which can be something like that. And then you will move to the third diamond, where this solution will get into much more detail and will get built at the same time as it gets more and more detailed. So for me, it extends all toward the end of the third diamond as well. So yes, you would be like, okay, then everything is designed. So what do we do? Yeah, we can move to the next slide. Yeah. So what happens then? So everything's designed and we only need designers. So it's not really what I mean. So basically, the design process is present in the three diamonds, but in each of the stages, we have an owner. So we have someone who's highly specialized or has very deep skills on the knowledge required on that part. So for instance, when you're in the problem space, in the first diamond, you need someone who's highly specialized on understanding human needs, on managing big amounts of information and analyzing this information. So there you can be having the researcher as the owner, in this case, like Natasha, for instance, as we have in the planner. As well, in that part, we might need someone who's highly specialized on the business, right? In the first diamond. So someone who can see which of these opportunities from this problem space can have more impact in the business. Another example in the second diamond, when we're thinking about solution, most likely the designer will be the owner, because like finding solutions can be the core skill of the designer. And same thing on the third one. Maybe the owners are more like the developers, or someone who is highly specialized on managing this development process of putting all the pieces together and making something that works and be able to deliver that. But these professionals, they don't work like in silos. So it's not like I work first, as Matt said at the beginning, and then I hand over this material to you. So we really need, as we mentioned, tight collaboration here between the roles. And this tight collaboration is what brings us some of the principles we mentioned. So we can get faster product development when we collaborate tightly, because we can reduce this waste in the sense that we can replace deliverables and we can replace documentation and handoffs with common understanding, with collaboration, and with just trying to find the solution to the problem together in a way. And another thing that we get as well is that we can find more creative solutions, right? Because when we collaborate, we build on top of the ideas of each other. And these two things, being fast and being creative, we said they are essential for the VUCA world, if we consider the world to be VUCA. And just wanted to mention here as well that this collaboration also represents that the process is not linear, right? Because the lines now between the roles and the different phases start to be very blurry and they overlap to each other. This is what collaboration brings us. And as well,
Sorry, I wanted to say that it's also super normal that, during this collaboration, you're going to create much more diamonds through it. So at any stage, you can actually find out new diamonds to start. So, and then the whole cycle starts again. So you're never at one stage at the one moment. So
yes, like you can be having multiple problems you find, and then you open multiple diamonds for solutions, or you can even come back, like maybe you're experimenting at the end of the second diamond, and then you decide that after the result of the experiment, you're not moving to development because you found new problem or new opportunity, and then you're moving back to the first diamond. So in this context, what kind of people do we need so they are able to collaborate tightly and work together? So basically, it's what we call the T-shaped roles. So maybe Natasha, if you can move to the next one, just so to visualize. Yeah, so this is just a visualization of the type of roles that we normally need in this type of environment. So someone who's highly specialized on one skill or one domain, but at the same time has other skills and specializations, so more generalist knowledge that allows them to collaborate with other roles, like a designer who knows a bit about research, or a developer who knows a bit about interaction patterns or design, and these kind of examples. Yeah.
Or developers, joining interviews of customers.
Yes.
Yes. And don't forget the data analysts who help us with, statistical relevant data when we're talking about validation too. So defining success metrics once we have the solution, really defined. So of course, I love this T-shaped model. I think it's a great visualization of what we're talking about.
Cool. So yeah, we have another question now, Sergey.
Yeah, this one is open-ended. So we would ask our dear audience to use the chat for that. How does delivery fit in the structure, in your opinion? And please use the chat window. Meanwhile, there's a suggestion from, there is a request from Jakub to show the T model again.
Yes.
This T model, I like it as well for people like me who it's super curious about everything. Like we cannot commit to one thing. Then it's like, okay, this is for me. I can keep like picking from here and there.
But we also try to embrace it in all product teams. So it's not that you need to be like super extrovertic or another way. It's just continuous collaboration with the team, and then being exposed just at some moment makes you just better. So it's also a lot depends on the mindset. If how open are you for the full collaboration, and how much you expect, as you may see in some places, like the handoff or a bit more structured deliverables. Okay, I think we don't have many answers to the question, so we can jump.
That's an understatement. Yes. So
yeah,
maybe it's a difficult question.
yes.
Maybe
Last chance.
I would say that majority, like 99% of the cases, you're gonna end up with delivering the third diamond. So this is the change from what the British Council proposed. In some of the cases, you're actually gonna maybe delivering some things in the second diamond. So in some cases, validation gonna happen through maybe A/B testing. So you will deliver some stuff, maybe you'll code, but it's gonna be much more small. So let's assume that in the first two diamonds, we try to validate problems through the most cost-effective ways that does not include development, because development is in general costly, right? I'm not meaning like in terms of how much we need to pay, but it's in terms of time and how much power gonna be put into the end solution given to the customers. We need to make sure that before we want to make this investment, we are sure that the problem we want to attack is worth attacking. And then if we are sure, then next slide, please. So leaving the two diamonds, we're entering the third one, where we treat the design concept that Hunka was talking about as a starting point. So there's no handoff, it's continuous. We have just visualization of diamonds, but there is no handoff. And what we start is solution development. So since we have like a definition and let's say boundaries for a solution, the teams, meaning engineering, design, research, data, like everybody together works in iterative agile techniques. So different implementation and different techniques may be present. Some may use Scrum, some may use ShapeUp, some may use Kanban. So there are going to be different techniques. But through the cycles, they try to define the solutions more. So get into more fidelity of the design. Some of the usability testing may be happening here. So we are lowering risk with like defining the solution that we want to build, going further towards the initial rollout. So at this stage, we probably gonna have deliverable, and we're gonna be ready to launch it to some of the customers that we believe are the good fit to validate if the end solution actually delivers and all of the hypotheses we had along the way are true on a smaller scale. So obviously we don't want to burn the market like they first to ship the wrong solution to everybody. So here we try to focus on how much value we deliver to the users in these initial tests, find any problems with the solutions. And we are also at this stage, we are very flexible and agile to change. So this is still moment for us to pivot or change according to the feedback. So we are open to change the solution. Closer to the end of this initial rollout, we believe that we are on a spot with the solution, and then we move to roll out to everybody, so general availability of the feature. And in this stage, we focus mainly on learning. So if we had the good success metrics and we had good understanding of our problem, at this stage, we can understand if the solution we propose solves the problem in a scale that we expected to see in this place. And from this stage of learning, we actually can source very much the very beginning of the diamond. So the very first diamond, uncovering possibly, I don't know, new iterations or finding new patterns in the new reality that we just created with the solution. Or we may find out that everything was bad and, well, the risk is always there. So we may ship something wrong at the end, but this is always possible.
And I guess the point here also, Matt, is that like sometimes when we get too excited and we, move already, let's say, to the development phase, is that it's kind of like, I mean, of course, we always want to learn, but the whole point is like you're shooting in the dark, where you could be shooting at a target, right? Yeah. Where you could have defined niche market needs, problem, solution. So yes, I mean, I guess it's yeah.
You can relate it to hammer and nails. So, you may show a hammer to someone and ask if the nails are doing the right job with the hammer. So if you can nail the nails with the hammer, the person probably gonna say yes. You still don't know if he was building a building or a roof, or if actually it's applicable to his life. It's just, yeah, you have beautiful hammer, I will never use it. So it is very important to understand to whom and why you want to do it. And then all of the things we do in the first diamond and activities at the beginning of the third diamond are here to try to minimize the risk. So I wouldn't say we have a target, but we have like some idea about where the target may be at this stage, and then where are we shooting in which direction. So yeah.
And moreover, I would also say that sometimes we see this problem a lot, which is like even new startups, they have like early adopters, but when they want to cross that chiasm, like really jump and really talk about retention, it's like they're lacking it. And to be honest, like I think there's a high correlation with like really understanding the needs and the problems and things that are really like, I mean, more and so like stable, and how actually they will be able to cross this chasm and retain the users that they want to retain. So just another.
Yeah, this is product market fit searching one-on-one. So
at its fullest, yes.
Yeah, but this is the definition. So a bit outside, but if you ever think about the product market fit, this is what you're looking for, right? So you're looking from where I'm sitting for a replicable business model that you can keep reapplying in a sustainable way. But from solution perspective, this means exactly what you've been saying. So this is through collaboration and having different views, as you see one of our principles, you can get the full picture, and then the decisions are just much more well educated.
Cool. So maybe to see so maybe for our audience to explain a bit, well, I mean, maybe we can give an example for this. And the good thing in the planner is that we have an environment where it's allowed to fail, let's say, right? Because if you really want to find something that is creative, something that is new, something that is different, you should allow the people to just try things out and be able to fail as well. So instead of bringing you like a success case, we wanted to bring you a project that we try to apply the third diamond. and it didn't go so well. So here we can share the learnings of how we could improve for the next time. And
just to add to the failure one,
yes,
I would also say that it's actually better to keep failing, or maybe not keep to fail early. So the process and the diamonds here are for us to fail as early as possible. But then we want to have like a fast throughput through the diamonds, so we can fail also with the production stage. So sometimes, yes, we will be hitting the initial rollout and we'll find out that nothing happened, just bad idea. That's normal. Like if you go and check like big product teams and big product organizations, that's just normal that they run hundreds or thousands of concurrent experiments just trying to test different ideas and failing a lot of times. But this is why we want to have fast and agile processes there to make it possible.
Yeah. So failures helps us move faster, even because we learn faster, and
So the reward is if you fail and you learned, then smaller chances you're gonna fail with the same problem again with different solutions. So it's just minimalizing the risk again, and it's just working towards how we can make it not hurting us a lot when we fail, basically.
Okay, so in this story with our learnings with the triple diamond, maybe Matt, you can tell us how everything started. Like what was the problem discovery at the beginning? Like what was the context?
Yeah, so that's gonna be an example where we skipped some parts, or maybe we will sum up in a minute. And Natasha, please jump in. So when it came to the problem discovery, I believe we jumped into the solution. So we had one of the feedbacks coming from of the customers that was super defined, and I believe in the problem definition discovery, we just took this problem as a problem statement.
Yes, so I think the learning here is that we took the feedback, but this feedback was based on what they wanted and what they wanted as a solution, but not exactly what they felt and what the need was. And I think like one thing for us to really think about here is like users, they don't know what they want, they know what they need and feel. So it's a question of also like thinking, okay, I'm getting this feedback, but I'm getting a feedback based on a solution. Should I take it for granted? I mean, no. Right? I mean, the answer here. So yes, that was the case.
Focus a bit more on why, right? We would keep asking the question why you need this.
Exactly.
But to give an example, we skipped this part, so we took it as a problem and as a fact. And then the other thing that we did here was, so we did some data validation, but we basically validated that in other research run in a different context, we had similar feedback popping in as a trend. But it was totally detached research that had some anecdotal evidences in it. So we did get a bit lost into really liking the idea we saw, I would say, in the problem, in this stage, in the problem discovery.
And then, so were there any problem definition? The problem definition was just the request from the user. So this user sent this request, and that was the problem definition for us.
It wasn't really based on the need, and because we didn't really fully discover the need. So it was like XX type of user, desires, and then you have Y, but this Y is like solution oriented, not necessarily problem need oriented. Yeah.
Okay. And very superficial maybe as well. Okay.
Yeah, I do believe we were a bit retrofitting like the solution that we saw into our own, templates of the documents. So we knew we need to have some problem definition. So we wrote it, but we didn't back it up with like discovering and deep understanding of why this solution.
Yes, because sometimes it's difficult when you already see the solution, kind of you have it in your mind to take a step back, right? That's a bit tough. So I guess if we already had the solution, did we do any ideation, or I guess maybe smaller one inside the same solution kind of thing, or how was it, the solution discovery?
So the problem here was, well, maybe not the problem, process. So how we understood this at the moment. So it's not that, no shame. So it's not that anybody did it on purpose. It's just how we applied it to our own lives, and so others doesn't need to have it. But when it came to the solution, in the original feedback, some parts of the solution were already included. So like the boundaries or the naming of a solution was already there. So it was guiding us towards like, hey, we probably can add this new value to already existing feature. So we were trying to retrofit like new value proposition on top of the existing feature. So we said like, hey, they share similar name. We don't fully understand the why. So why not to come together with those two to see it.
And I think something else there is that we had a previous solution already that was very similar, and we loved that solution. So it's like, it was hard to take a step back and also, look at the problem statement, which also wasn't, as clear defined in terms of the need, and to even think outside of the box. So that ideation section of like thinking outside of the box wasn't really something done. It was like, because we had this solution in the back of our head, and we love solutions and we like stick to it. So sometimes it's good to like have your mind like not thinking about like solutions when you really ideate like previous solutions, right?
Yeah, and this is this as well comes from the problem definition. So it seemed to be too narrow. So it was too narrow, the problem definition, that it included the solution already. So how much you can open the next diamond? Very little. So yeah. And then, yeah, well, Matt, you wanted to add something?
I'm just breathing, so keep going.
No, I was going to ask you, okay, so the solution was very clear, right? So I guess there were some type of validation before moving forward, or how was it?
Yeah, so we did, sorry, Natasha, go.
No, I was going to say that there was validation, and we did look at metrics that were mostly related to like usability and even interest. But again, it's the hammer metaphor, Matt, that you could share here again. It's like we were focusing already on a solution, and we were like biasing our users in that sense and not really understanding how much it addressed the need, because the need wasn't even as defined, right? So
yeah, you can imagine if we want to the hammer, it's like we would meet people that needs to build a house. And instead of asking them what kind of a house they need to build, or maybe it's prefabricated and they just are looking for furniture, we were asking like, does this hammer work for you? Without asking like, whatever, it's just, hey, we have hammer, do you like hammer? And a lot of people were telling us, yes, this is hammer, it will hammer nails, very nice hammer. But none of them told us, we didn't ask them if they need a hammer in their life, or if they're building, for example, wooden house right now. And then this probably be a bit more useful to them than in other cases. So we did the validation, but we asked about the solution and not the feasibility or viability of this solution for them, really.
Yeah, this can happen. It's a common mistake with usability testing. This can totally happen. So you have your solution and you show it to user, but what you're validating is just the usability of it. Can you navigate? Can you finish the actions? But not any deeper than that. So it got delivered now to our customers?
Yeah, of course. So since we were in love with everything and we justified every decision along the way, we totally shipped the solution, and we went into the initial rollout, in which we saw two things. So we did see validation of the questions we asked. So usability-wise, the hammer was working and it was a really nice hammer, but was not producing an impact in a place that we've been hoping for this solution to be. So we did had some success metrics, and we believed like, hey, this will drive some of them towards, so the customers will have more engagement with the platform because we're giving them the right solution for a given problem. But we couldn't see it like actually happening on this stage. So we did make the decision to launch it to bigger customer group, almost everybody. And we still didn't saw the results that we were hoping on at the end. So since we had the process, at the end we found out, okay, the risk was until the very end, and the solution that we shipped was not delivering any real value, or maybe was delivering value to the niche, but this was the mismatch with what we were targeting at the very end, or believing when we read this first feedback and like went so much in love with the solution that we didn't stop and ask ourselves, okay, but why? Like, why are you doing this right now? So this was the story, basically. Yeah.
This was the end. What happened? Like we
Yeah,
we took it out, no? In the end,
yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah.
It basically we failed with the experiment, and then we are exploring new diamonds nowadays. But like, so what you can see here is during this process, we treated the triple diamond a lot as a checklist, and we had a few other problems. So we wanted to list like the should nots, or the problems and mistakes we made in that process. So one thing was that we blindly listened to what users wanted and focus a lot on this output versus the outcome. So we didn't ask like why they need it, what's gonna change in their life, what's the context of the need. We did fall in love with the solution, and thus we treated hypothesis as a fact. So, once you're in love, some of the things just go easier towards you. So a lot of stuff that you're gonna be telling, you're just gonna be taking as fact, because yes, this is an amazing solution. Yes, we heard it from the customer, so it's not even assumption. We love it, so it's a fact. As I said, also we treated parts of the model as a checklist. So we had problem definition, we created a document for the problem discovery, but it was a lot of checklist. We didn't had like super clear success metrics. So, as I said, we crossed the data from different researchers and some data points, but there were no clear of, so by clear success metric, I mean, you may in your practice have situations where you're going to launch it and you're going to have 100 customers. You should be able to say if 100 customers is good or bad, because depending on the context, it may be very bad or amazing. So if you're bootstrapping and this is your first 100 customers, congratulations. If you're having 15,000 customers and after a year you can engage 100, you're probably in a very bad position right now. So having the clear success metrics and being able to like guide you at the end of this is really important, and will also help you out to not justify patching, so not getting into the building trap, because this is the easiest one. If you end the diamond, you don't see the result, there is the urge of, but let's add a few more features on top and it's gonna fly. Success metrics protect you from this, so it's either working or not working, and you should rethink instead of patching. And then, we kept iterating without meeting the success criteria. So we got a bit here into the building trap, and we tried to justify it through launching a few more iterations to try to see if we can make some impact at the end with the features. So those are the things you should avoid when trying to work with this model.
And something, Matt, that also is important here, because we also mentioned, like, when you ask the question of like, where does delivery or deliverables, where are they? Our delivery, and sometimes like having these points where, okay, I think we have enough, and of course like enough would be, you would have to define what that is, right? How much do we trust what we have, and like if it's enough to move on? I mean, those points, they might be more important than we think, right? Maybe we could avoided a couple of our the should nots here.
For sure, and it's super important, as we believe in a lot of liberty and democracy here in product teams. It is a constant process of all of the teams working on the balance between this. So where is we don't need any more discovery in this place, or are we always in discovery? And the same is with the data, both quantitative and qualitative. So it's always trying to find the balance for the problems. And then, from business practice, you're going to be seeing problems with different level of possible investment of time, money, or anything else. So then you can try to justify if you have something that's mission critical for you. I would really recommend trying to go through rough process of validating this one. if those are just, improvements in places, maybe you don't need to apply the full technique. So you need to try to find the balance, or maybe you will apply the full, but you just need like few interviews at some moment. Yeah.
And I guess moving fast and working on smaller pieces helps as well. So you don't have time to fall in love a lot with your idea, no? Yeah.
Yep. So
this marks the end of the main presentation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have some questions from our attendees. Some of them were in the Q&A section, some of them were in the chat section. I'm gonna try to go in the order of their appearance, and I'm gonna unmute people who were asking them in case they want to. No, I'm gonna allow them to talk. This is the feature of the webinar, and they can unmute themselves if they want to specify something else.
Yeah.
So
please.
Sounds good.
Love to have some discussions. Yeah.
Okay. So the first question was from Anna and plus one from Fernando. Do you use or prefer a specific formula to frame the problem?
Yes, I think this was a discussion we had about the problem statement, right? So we are not going to frame the problem when we're exploring, because we're trying to really understand like all of the context. And then, as we said, like things are not linear, right? So sometimes you even have to see the flow of things and how needs relates to pain points, to jobs. So in that first part of the opening, we wouldn't say we would define, right? We would use a frame to define. But when we're closing the first diamond, this is when we have already evaluated via, it could be quantitative data, but it also could be triangulation of data, like how big this opportunity is, this problem at hand. And the frame we use to define this, to like move along, is the problem statement. So I did say, like when I was talking, I did mention something like the user or the niche or the market has a need or desire or motivation. We could even put here, but I would say there are differences here and we can talk about it. But they have a pain point, if they do have a pain point, Z, which leads to an emotional consequence. So like we phrase it all in one phrase. Well, that was a cacophony here. We put it all in one phrase, and that's like the problem statement frame.
And then we will have, through the process, we will also have few more problem statements using different formulas also. So in the design, we will use how might we from Google Design Sprints. And then in product, we'll heavily lean towards like lean startup and trying to have hypotheses that encapsulate the user behavior we want to see at the end of the experiment and include the success metric in it. So it's like, in the next 6 months, I want to see 1,000 customers using 80%, like having 80% of engagement. So this is my success metric. And I would not say it's nice if it's going to be less than 50. So it's going to be something like this. So we're going to have few of them depending on the stage in the diamond and how much we know in detail about the problem or solution that we're delivering at this moment.
And moreover, sorry, Junko, you can go first.
Now, I was going to say that my favorite is the how might we that Matt mentioned. That's super good for ideation because it's telling you already that there is a solution there. No, it's like bringing you to, okay, let's think together for a solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add that we also relate a lot the problems to the solutions, or I mean, you can call problems also opportunities here, right? Because then we already validated them. Like for example, with Matt, we have been working on like problem solution trees. That's also another way for us to like organize and frame these, the connection in between the first diamond and the second diamond, for example.
Just to add context, opportunity solution trees from book Continuous Discovery from Torres.
Teresa Torres.
Teresa Torres. Highly recommended if anybody is interested in discovery habits. Okay, Anna, does this answer your question, or maybe you want to use your mic time?
Yeah, Anna, if you want, please.
Yeah. Yeah, it answered it. And thank you so much. Much clearer. I've just put the question probably before we arrived at this point. So thank you a lot.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, we have our next question in the chat from Jakub. Would you have an advice for bootstrapped startup on how to run this 3-diamond process with low budget, on a shoestring budget, so to speak?
Yeah, so I would say, if I can start, Gareth, please join in whenever you
Yes,
want.
I think so. I think you're the best.
I love the topic. So I would try to go, so triple diamond, design thinking, all of those techniques or models, they're here to like minimize the risk you're gonna have. So if it's more, you're a founder and you're thinking more business model and something like business hypothesis, I would really recommend Lean Startup as a book or methodology to use in case of bootstrapping and trying to do it, because the idea is the same. So if we want to build a startup, right? So at the end of the day, we want to have this product market fit with replicable business model and sustainable way of selling. This is applicable to features as well. So in features, we just change business model for usage and it's gonna be fun. So you're always gonna start with some assumption and some hypotheses and ideas about problems you want to solve, right? So what your startup is doing and bringing a value to your customers. And then what's proposed in the book is actually trying to validate all of this. So you usually start from interviews, maybe validating some of the hypotheses with this. Then later you would move into MVPs, trying to shape one or another MVP, and continuously trying to validate the hypothesis that you have. The low cost part there is you would actually move to development and delivery in the last moment possible. So you would ship at the moment you would be sure. So what you do is a lot of lean experiments like fake tests, landing pages. You can do a Wizard of Oz sometimes, so you just don't need to require code. You can play around with prototypes, but it's much more important to validate the problem before you go to development. So then the triple diamond, I would say it's crucial to have that first two. And then techniques are different in lean and double, triple diamond, but the general idea is the same. So you start with some ideas and you try to verify how possible they are through a series of respectively cheap experiments for your case.
And in terms of cost in validating your hypothesis related to the market and the problem, what I would say is that to diminish, this cost, it would be like a human cost, right? Like time cost, I would say. But what you would do is you would classify your hypothesis, how strongly or not strongly do you agree with them, and which ones you believe, let's say, more strongly with, and then you're going to tackle that niche. And you're going to find the problems and needs related to that niche, right? And then if you don't see a pattern in needs, you go back and you go to your second hypothesis of your niche. And in that sense, it's iterative, but at least it's like you're putting your eggs in a basket that you believe is more promising instead of spreading it out and doing full exploratory discovery.
Yeah, tip here is also you should focus probably first on the most risky hypothesis. So, every time you're building software, you believe, yeah, we're going to build this amazing software and it's going to be huge and fine, but there's this one foundation hypothesis on the bottom of everything, and this doesn't work, then you're screwed. So, you try to order them through how much risk they present and how much you can go for it. And in terms of costs also, both deliverables, ads, or human time, it is really important to keep in mind the scale. So we are not talking here about thousands of interviews done in 6 continents. A lot of times we're gonna be moving by 3 interviews saying, okay, good enough, let's move further and it's fine. And, as a founder to founder, I would say really nice and well time spent if you find out early on that you could avoid some stuff or find competitive advantage through going really deeply into the why and understanding the context and the needs.
I agree with that one. Regarding design would be similar. If you're starting, you don't need a UI kit. You don't need a full system for designing. You just need the super basics. And as well here, super important, the T-shaped roles and the collaboration, right? To allow us to move as faster as possible. And yeah.
So Kuba, did we help you?
Yes, yes, thank you very much. It was really helpful to hear that, and I think that I will try to use this knowledge. Thank you.
Awesome.
Jakub, we will jump to your second question a bit later, but first there was a question from Christina and everyone. Okay, she disappeared.
She didn't want to talk.
If I butcher it,
so yeah.
Yes. If I butcher anyone's name, it's not on purpose. It's just my revenge on the world for butchering my second name. Right. So the questions from Christina were the following: do you have a manual for solution development for teams, or each team works differently?
I would say all of them work differently. I mean,
yes.
So we do have some common objects, meaning like we do tend more towards the project should be time bounded. So there can be sprints of 2, 6, 7 weeks, whatever works for a given context in a team. So we have some mutual agreements between the teams about timings, let's say. Point being that they need to be there, not agreement of something is a length of 2 and it needs always to be that. But then all of the teams have full freedom over the framework they're gonna work in delivery. So if it's Agile, if it's Scrum, if it's Shape Up, if it's their own methodology they're invented, as long as it works and embraces the general ideas of continuous discovery and the fact that we need to, be focused on the value delivered to the customers, this is totally fine and it's working for the teams. So we don't really have a manual, meaning like a template or anything like this, how you should build the solution.
And at the end of the day, even if you, even if you agree on a methodology, you will see that in time, the team will evolve it and will change it and will make it their own. So anyway, it's going to be different. Yeah.
Or even switch methodologies, right? We had that too. We started with one. Sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, it really depends on the dynamics that we have, right? And that could also.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, and I think this is the interesting one. How do you manage learning process? It looks nice, but in real life, the problem is how to learn cross-company, cross-teams.
The learning process.
The learning process.
The learning process. Okay.
Right. The learning process can be like one of the pillars would be the sharing, right? Sharing and making sure that everything that we are delivering is in an empathetic format that people can really understand, and it has also impact. So it is related to what people want to see in terms of business strategies. So there is like the sharing element and everything that comes with it. There's also like the intaking of it. Sometimes like just sharing things is not enough. Sometimes we have to like be a little bit more interactive, like have workshops, have demos, have, a more like one-to-one or explanatory section to it. I think these are two things that I'm thinking here. But of course, we need like a process of managing all of these deliverables, making sure it's people are accessing it and it is accessible, but also making sure like they engage with it, right, and fully understand it and build off of it. So just one other point is that we've been working a lot here at Doc Planner at like aggregating our knowledge and making sure we see the full picture and we see like where these insights are related to the full picture.
Yeah. And to add here, there's also like, as mentioned by Hunkal before, we do encourage everybody to be engaged through the process. So you can have mutual understanding. So instead of building documentation, we can have teams that are experts in the domain. So the one important thing in the planner is we don't slice teams technology-wise. The teams are divided by the values they can deliver to different types of customers. So it's not that we have a search team, we have a team working on patients. So then, you need the full context, and then inside these domains, you know much more. The moments of crossing of the domains are amazing, actually, usually, because we can start crossing nodes from different parts and start finding like acceleration points in some of the ways. So it's like, if you have a team working on chat and you have a team working on prescriptions, how about sending them through the chat? No, it's like you start seeing them, but you're coming from the values of the customer that you can deliver. So you're trying to search knowledge that is reliable to this, and then we have people that are accountable for this knowledge. If you need to find them, you usually can find a specialist for a given part of a value chain you want to do. Yeah.
And I wanted to add here about the engagement that Natasha said, that one thing that researchers do that I love and really engage the teams is that they ask the teams, what do you need to know? Because developers and designers were like building solutions on a daily basis, and you come up with questions of things you haven't answered. So the researchers are like, okay, give them to me. And then we own a bit more the results of the research as well. It's like more participative. Yeah.
Okay. There is no one to tell you whether you answered the question or not. Hopefully we did. Yes, another one from Jakub. What was the first problem of Doc Planner actually? Matt, you should know.
There is no single answer to it, unfortunately, because we originated from different companies. So depending on what you ask for. So the very, very original, as you're Polish, I guess, you may know Znany Lekarz. So the very, very first one, we were trying to solve an issue of when you call a clinic, you have no clue which of the doctors is good. And in Poland, we may be not that trustworthy and saying every doctor is good. So we believed back in the day that the problem we can try to solve is for you to be able to pick the good doctor. That was, 12 years ago. So we evolved a bit from that moment. And today we are trying to solve a bit different things. So we call it making the healthcare experience more human. But if you look at the general experience in healthcare for both patients and the doctors, there is a lot of digitalization and processes that actually take time from you and the doctor on spending time with each other. So it's like you have long lines, check-ins, and a lot of processes. And then the same for the doctor is like writing notes, answering patient calls, and everything just takes the time from being there with the patient and focusing on the healthcare right now, on the care that we can deliver to the patients. So what we try to do is remove those distractions from both patients and doctors. It should be transparent. So process of accessing and going through the healthcare should be just transparent for you. And then if we can do it, let's see. But this is the problem we want to try to solve. So instead of having 15 minutes visits with the doctors on average, we really would like to see a world in which you can have an hour call with a doctor and it's really in deep and can help you out. But for this, we need to work on both sides of the fence.
Well, thank you very much. That sounds great. Thank you for your answer.
Thanks, Jakub. Okay, next question comes from Chiara. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. How much time do you dedicate to the first 2 diamonds? How much time do designers working in development teams spend for the first 2 diamonds compared to their development work?
Good one. So from the designer, I would say that you can be talking in weeks because we normally work on small things, right? So you would have in our case, you would have a bit of a more strategic research going on. And here the designer will take part maybe in slots of 2 weeks or stuff like that, trying to see this problem definition and see solutions. And then maybe another 2, 3, 4 weeks working with developers, more or less. Yeah.
I guess it depends on the size too of things, but
yeah.
And the scope, and also how much time you have, how fast you do your stuff, because I mean, everyone has a dynamic, right? Like I personally enjoy working with multiple projects, let's say at the same time. But I agree with you on the timeline, Call. It's like weeks and 1 to 2 weeks, and then development, I guess it also depends on the size.
Yeah, as an example, we can.
I'll fix that.
Well, okay, awesome, thank you. So just one thing that I would add to this is also in the teams where we do apply like continuous discovery, then you can have a problem with assuming the timeline because you're always in every place at the same time.
Yes.
Especially as a designer, so I can spoil. So in some of the teams, we do have a weekly or bi-weekly meeting that's focused more on a discovery track. So we have meetings focused on like, what are the questions for the future and bets we want to put? And then in parallel to that, you would have the delivery track, which is already working on one or multiple solutions for different diamonds, let's say. So this can be parallelized also. So then we have designers as VUCA sometimes working in both in parallel, basically.
Something we also do take into account, one last thing, Sergey, sorry, I get excited about the topic, is that, of course, we don't want to overwhelm our users and customers and like bombard them with experiments, with research. I mean, it's very niched, right? Many times it's very niched to then be expanded when we're evaluating the impact, but we do also follow some type of a process, right? And knowing where we can actually send and communicate with these users. So, yes.
Thank you very much for your answer. Yes, it's very interesting, especially considering what Matt said about continuous discovery, because it's about balancing the time in between one and the other without sacrificing development as well. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question is from Grzegorz. Again, sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly. And this is a long one. So, are product managers on your side actively working on all the diamonds? Or do you use some mix of PM plus PO, where, for example, PO takes over the third diamond backlog stuff? Let's start with this.
Do you know, Matt?
Well, hard to tell. So in general, the product managers will be in majority of the steps in the process. We do have different approaches per team. So in some of the configuration, we will have a product manager joined by a product owner. I'm not a big fan of the title, but it's more like having two people working on the Y-end delivery. So the product manager will be trying to look at the whole diamond, and we may have a product owner focus a bit more in delivery and helping team to like go through this de-risking and defining the solution at the end. So then the product owner works more as a facilitator for a team inside the third diamond and trying to help them out to drive towards the value. In some of the cases, the PM gonna fill in, because it depends heavily on the size and the preference of a team, actually, how many roles they do want to have. So again, a bit of liberty in our case. What's there?
Matt, just like what you said, POs would be more inward facing. PMs are more outward facing, right? In that sense.
Yeah. But then in terms of how we manage time practically and how to be in multiple places at the same time, the answer is having autonomous teams. So the processes that we described, we do have product managers and product owners in there, but we are more as consultants and guidance there than managers or stakeholders or anybody that needs to do seal of approval of a solution. So we are, in a lot of cases, we are not needed. So a lot of ideation can be done, with any configuration of a product team. So you can think of product more as a profile or a role in a product team than like any, roadblock for the product team. So a lot of time it's gonna be team working on define the solution, and we are there just if they need any help or need any guidance towards more the business goal. But we don't do micromanagement, or we don't try to, as product managers, we will never own the solution space. We own product space, problem space, or opportunity space, depending on the naming you're going to choose. And we are responsible for the solution, but we don't own the solution. Solution is built and owned by the team because of their expertise. So, they're going to be better designers, better researchers, better data analysts, better engineers. So they can produce much better solution than whatever I would design. Of course, depending on the stage, you're going to have less roles in the team. So you need to be a bit more crafty sometimes. But this is generally how we try to approach it. So we are there to guide and help, but we are not there to micromanage and talk about details of the implementation with the team. So this is decision up to the Juncal and the engineering team at the end.
Yeah. And I want to add here that if the team is ready for this setup of being the owners of the solution, because of course you need some level of seniority, but if the team is ready and you give them this autonomy of, hey, you are the owner of the solution, then the engagement, it's really high in all the team members. And yeah.
All right. And we have a follow-up question from Grzegorz. You mentioned tutors. Do you use her technique, for example, mentioned, I think it's opportunity solution tree, right?
Yeah.
When you identify your problems, opportunity space, as she calls it. So like an input for the diamonds.
Yeah, this is basically our starting point for the diamonds. So whenever we identify if we look at the wider experience map or experience of our customers, taking consideration of the context and VUCA word and everything like this, we usually are able to name business behaviors. So not always objectives, but a lot of time behaviors we want to see as, hey, this is the bet. We want to do this because at the other end we will see something desirable for us. And this sources for us later the opportunities. So we start looking at this context, this experience, and we start looking at what the possible opportunities. So this is just going super wild. So this is, you can create 25 different diamonds. And then once we have those opportunities, we will initially probably filter them to the best candidates somehow with some gut feeling, and then we would enter the diamonds. So we would try to size them to be able to compare and then discover further, probably experiment a bit. So a lot of times at the end of the diamond, we'll just send a maze taste or ask more customers about much more educated things and never go into development at the end of the second diamond, just because we'll define of maybe different opportunity happened, taking consideration this is continuous process that has these checkpoints weekly or bi-weekly. Girls, please add something.
I was thinking what I was thinking is that this makes sense because you will have bigger opportunities in your tree, and then when you start trying to make this into solutions, you start finding that there are a lot of things that you don't know. So as well, it's like a tool for seeing the gaps and seeing what you still don't know when you try to take it to ground to the diamonds and start getting more into detail.
Right. And I was going to say that, at some point we might think, oh, this is just a way of reorganizing the insights that you have and phrasing it, but it's not just that, right? I think it's what we just discussed here. It's it's a good model that can help us really understand and see gaps, and also connect to, of course, we shouldn't overpopulate it. we should try to make it concise, simple, I think the main objective here is the relationship between the opportunities at hand and solutions. So
yeah.
Yes.
And it's also a very good tool for the whole team to engage with it again, because it's very visual, it's very simple. So you can super quickly have the snapshot of what's going on in the discovery world.
Or deliveries, right? So opportunity solution
True.
trees.
Exactly, sorry. Yeah.
So you can super easily track from what feature you're doing to why you're doing it. So even talking to stakeholders and trying to explain your strategy or discovery techniques right now, you can show what you're doing, and what in time becomes even more valuable for this technique is showing what you're not gonna do. So this is this part about failing early on. So yes, this may seem like, oh, now we'll be spending 6 months until we ship something. But at some moment you can see that, so I spent 6 months debunking something that would cost me 2 years, and this makes no sense. And during those 6 months, I was able to validate 33 ideas that would not fly and then find one that works. Extreme example, does not happen that long usually, so it's weeks. But yeah, it's just the time spent there is really valuable in terms of not producing the waste. Yeah.
Okay, I hope that helps. Yeah, we can jump to the next question from Michal, I assume.
Yeah.
How many people from the product team are usually involved throughout the whole process for a single problem and feature? Do you run multiple discoveries in parallel to put everyone's focus on only one topic?
Yeah. So as I said, we try to run it in parallel. So both delivery and discovery. I would say for the discovery track, you need minimum of the trio mentioned in a book, but I don't also believe that trio is the right number. So you need as many perspectives that can influence you as possible. So if you can have product engineering, design, amazing. If you can have product, data, research, and engineering, even better. And it heavily depends on the state of and the context and the load of everybody at the given moment. So we may have meetings where we will really ask some developers to come and help us in discovery because we are about discussing technical feasibilities and things like this. Sometimes we will not, but the meetings are always open. So I would say there is this minimal of 3, maximum of whomever want to join. And there is this tip that more than 4, you need facilitator because then the sessions become too complicated and the stages in the diamond become too fuzzy. So you need a bit condensed group there.
I was also gonna say that here at Doc Planner, like apart from the people within the product teams, we have, a research team where each one of our researchers are in different product teams. And there's also this type of collaboration that happens a lot. And it's great because we're bouncing back ideas. So like sometimes when we're too focused and like too focused on a specific type of user and flow, like the focus point of our product team, sometimes we don't see like an outside view is very important. So when you ask like how many people are usually involved, I would even say that it's more than just the product team here. And I think this is one of the greatest parts, in my opinion, of just having like exchanges and having a support team, right? Based on the specialization and like the owners of each section of the diamond, as Junko explained.
Same case for design, Natasha. So we have our peer designers to gather feedback, and also we have design system team who, works on all the UI kit and design operations and everything. Yeah. And when it comes to development, in my experience, depending if you want to have the team that it's really owner of themselves, for me, like ideal would be like 4 or 5 people. We've done it like up to more like 7, 8, even 9, but then it starts getting more messy. So what we normally try to do is to divide into 2 smaller solutions that may be attacking the same opportunity or close up opportunities. Yeah,
but keep the teams, like the delivery teams, super focused on one topic, but in a small. We don't want to, it's a standard dilemma of a product owner, product manager. In some of the cases, like if I drop 6 backends on this problem, will it be 6 times faster? No, 5 of them probably gonna be, and then 1 will be coding because it's not that they're gonna be coding every second line of code the other person. No, so we're trying to focus on one solution, as many people as possible there as needed. But trying to keep to this, one pizza size teams and things like this.
Okay. Yeah, a comment from Michal that it does get messy with more people, and he thanks you for your answers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we don't seem to have more questions. So what do you guys say we start wrapping this thing up? Sounds good to you?
Maybe we can also remind our audience that we are looking for product designers, product managers, researchers, if they want to join us.
Exactly.
Super smooth, but we need to mention that we are always open for opportunities. So please feel free to check them. Natasha, actually, if we could get back to presentation and show the last slide, I would love to close with that one. So one thing is,
yes.
We would love to involve you and invite you to check the planner and be aligned with what we have in our pipelines right now and for whom we are looking for. But also, if you want to like continue discussion or have more questions or are interested in any of the bits and pieces that you heard from us today, we will have a recording. It's gonna be public for you. We'll also upload it to the channel of our podcast. So the two-facet podcast mentioned at the beginning. If we get the last slide, we'll be able to
You can do it,
I
Natasha.
am working on it because I closed it, unfortunately, but here, I'm getting it.
So
Yes.
we have links also in chat, and in a second you will see a QR code that if you use, you can join to us and become a subscriber and listen to me and Hunkal and some maybe other joiners into the future talking about how we approach product development. So
exactly, like Matt said, the recording would be available on our channel soon. So follow us on social media, check out our page .planner.tech for opportunities and to learn more about us. Absolutely subscribe to this fantastic podcast where you can hear more from Matt and Hunkal explaining this complex stuff. And on our behalf, we want to thank everyone who attended this meetup for showing up. Thank you very much. Thank you for spending your evening with us, and a huge thank you for our speakers, panelists. This was a very complex topic, but you managed to, the three of you were able to build a triple diamond digestive system to explain. Yeah, thank you very much.
Happy to hear. Glad that everybody came, and thank you all for coming today and wanting to listen to us.
Right. Stay tuned for more meetups in the future. Yep. I think that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone.
Stopping the recording.
Yep.